Hey guys, welcome to my channel, Perspective with Kate. Before I begin, I just want to let you guys know my intentions behind these podcasts. I'm here to educate you guys. I'm here to give you guys a new perspective. I'm here to give you guys a chance to hear different opinions, different sides of the stories, and help you form your own opinion. I'm never here to shove my opinion down your throat, although I will let you know how I feel about certain things, but ultimately I want you guys to come to that conclusion yourselves. Also, my website is now up and running. You can find it in my Instagram bio or under each video on my YouTube page and also on my Twitter. And you can now scroll down, and each case I'll post a picture of that person with a go button on it. And if you click that go button, it'll take you to all the petitions, the links, and more resources. Today we're going to be talking about a controversial case. It has been brought to light since the George Floyd incident, and it was, air quotes, solved, but there's a ton of controversy surrounding it, and I want to use this platform to allow you guys a chance to sign the petition to reopen the case if you guys come to that conclusion after listening. And this is the case of Kendrick Johnson. Kendrick Johnson lived with his family in Valdosta, I hope I'm saying that right, Valdosta, Georgia, and attended Lowndes High School. He was a 3-sport athlete and dreamed of one day playing professional football. But all of that ended when his body was found wrapped up in a gym mat in his school's gymnasium on January 11, 2013. So to get the whole picture, we have to back up to January 10th, so the day before Kendrick's body was found. He didn't show up to weight class that afternoon, and when he didn't show up at home by 9:30 p.m., his mother Jackie starts driving back and forth from their house to the school, searching for Kendrick. With no sign of their son, Jackie called the police around 12:30 a.m. to report him missing, and Kendrick was nowhere to be found. So let's go back to Friday, January 11th. So around 10 a.m., a group of students arrived at the Lowndes High School gym for a class. They noticed a pair of white socks sticking out of one of the rolled-up wrestling mats that was stored in the corner. One of the students stood up on the bleachers for a better view, and that's when they see the horrific view of Kendrick Johnson's body. Students began to call 911, and one of the gym teachers attempted to pull Kendrick's body out of the mat quickly, but then he realized he was too late and that he was already dead. So the police and medical personnel arrive, and the school was locked down by 11 a.m. The Lowndes Sheriff Chris Pines, Deputy Jones Crow, and the GBI show up to the crime scene. Now, I don't know if you guys know this, but Georgia has their own Bureau of Investigation system, and it's a statewide investigative law enforcement agency. It's independent, but it's a statewide agency that provides assistance to Georgia's criminal justice system. So basically, instead of immediately calling the FBI, Georgia calls the GBI. So after further investigation, they figure out that Kendrick had been wrapped in the mat for 21 hours. And at around 4 p.m., the county coroner Bill Watson arrives, and I find this really weird, and so does everyone else, because the Georgia law states that the coroner must arrive immediately at the scene, and this guy didn't show up until 6 hours later. And Bill Watson later states that by the time he arrived at the crime scene, it had already been compromised. He didn't go into specific details, but he also said that he didn't agree with him being called 6 hours after the fact. And he agreed that the sheriff broke protocol by not calling him right away. So I want to give you guys the details of Kendrick's body in the mat. And these details are pretty gruesome, so viewer discretion advised. And I will not be posting photos onto my Instagram or YouTube. I do not believe in posting dead loved ones. But you can do a quick Google search if you really want to see it, and it'll bring you straight to the images. But I will post a photo of the mat in the gym so that you guys can get an idea of the size of the mat and see how it was standing up when Kendrick's body was found. So the mat was rolled up and standing up straight vertically. and Kendrick's body was found upside down, head first into the mat. And since Kendrick was face down for 21 hours, all the blood had rushed to his head, and he began bleeding out of all of his orifices. And he was in pretty bad shape, guys. The photos are truly horrific. And his face almost doesn't look human. And it actually looks similar to Emmett Till's face, if you guys have ever seen that horrific photo. Kendrick was found in a white t-shirt, jeans, and socks on, but no shoes on his feet. Now, at the very bottom of the mat, so it would have been above Kendrick's head, because remember, he was upside down, there was one shoe, a size 9 Adidas shoe, and a lot of the students said that they would frequently place their gym shoes inside of the rolled up mats if they didn't want to pay for a locker to keep their stuff in, and it was confirmed that Kendrick did this. I also want to mention that the school had just began after having been on Christmas break. And before Christmas break, apparently the mats were laid down flat. And when they got back from Christmas break, they had moved the mats and placed them straight up vertically. And these mats were 6 feet tall and 700 pounds each. The Adidas shoe was lying on top of a pool of blood and vomit. And there was also blood on the wall nearby. But it was later tested by the GBI, and they said that it wasn't Kendrick's. But they also never tested it to see if it was anyone else's. And he also had earbuds and a Starburst wrapper stuck to his left elbow. He was also found with another pair of shoes, so size 9 Nike shoes, shoved behind his knee. So he was upside down, but there were a pair of shoes by his legs on top of him. Insert suspicious emoji face. So the initial theory is that Kendrick was reaching down into the mat to retrieve his gym shoes and could not get back out and suffocated. And now, to remind you, these mats were 6 feet tall and 700 pounds. And when rolled up, the mat left a 14-inch hole in diameter in the center. And Kendrick's shoulders measured 19 inches across, and he was 5 feet 10 inches tall. And so basically they just ruled this a freak accident, that Kendrick got stuck in this mat. And Kendrick's family believed that the sheriff's department was too quick to rule out foul play. And considering that within 24 hours of finding Kendrick's body, they concluded that it was an accident. And the official ruling after the first official autopsy was positional asphyxiation. And there were a few noted abrasions on his fingers, but it wasn't noted as anything serious or anything to do with his death or foul play. The Johnsons ended up releasing the horrifying photo of their son's face to the public, and the community was horrified. And they began to rally around the Johnson family in their quest for the truth. And they start a campaign. They claim that his ruling had to do with him being black, and that if he had been white, it would have been a totally different story. And they got hundreds of people behind them to rally and protest to reopen Kendrick's case. And I want to talk about a few of the reasons why Kendrick's family, why they were so convinced, why this wasn't just an accident. You know, it wasn't just oh, well, he was black, and if he would have been white, they would have paid a little more attention or further investigated. No, they had some sketchy shit going on, guys. Like, if I were his family, I would have definitely been sketched out and thought that something else happened. So, when Kendrick's father went to the coroner to identify his son's body, he noted that the air was not on in the cooler and that it was hot. And he believes that this was to speed the decomposing process of Kendrick's body to hide evidence. Kendrick's clothing disappeared somewhere between the GBI who conducted the autopsy and the funeral home. The transporting company confirms that his belongings were with him, but the funeral home claims that when they received Kendrick's body, all they received was his body and a broken pair of headphones. And his clothing are still missing today. And the Johnsons believe that the missing clothing may have evidence on it that someone doesn't want them or the public to find out. Another odd thing is that on the original EMT report, they note bruising on Kendrick, but the GBI's report doesn't note any bruising at all. And the investigators also did not tag and bag the single shoe found by Kendrick's head, so the Adidas shoe. And they didn't bag it and take it into evidence at all, which is really odd to me, because you would think that everything and anything found at the crime scene would be bagged and taken in as evidence and even tested, but that wasn't the case here. Another sketchy piece of evidence is that the investigators get footage from the school, and the footage shows Kendrick had been to classes that morning and he had walked into the gym around 1:09 p.m. And there were several cameras in the gym, but none of them were in the correct position to capture Kendrick's final moments. But they do show him walking off to the right-hand corner of the gym, which is where the mats were stored. And 15 minutes after this, a class begins in the gym. So my question is, and the Johnsons' question is, if he had just fallen into the mat reaching for the shoe, wouldn't you think that he'd be calling out for help, or someone in the class would have heard him calling out for help? I mean, okay. But we also later find out that the surveillance footage has been altered. And I'll provide a small clip.
Sheriff's Office.
There are 4 cameras in the gym that records motion from when the lights turn on in the morning until when the lights are turned off at night, except for the area of interest.
The moments before Kendrick Johnson enters the gym. Look at what happens to the recordings from these 4 cameras in the gym. The time is recorded with the video. The first camera captures images from the start of the day until 12:04 p.m. Then, nothing. It picks up again at 1:09 p.m. There's consistent surveillance from the second camera until 11:05 a.m. Then it stops and picks up again more than 2 hours later at 1:15 p.m. The third camera also drops at 11:05 a.m. It picks up again at 1:16 p.m. And from the final camera, there's surveillance until 12:04 p.m., no recording for more than an hour, then it picks up again at 1:09 p.m.
I would absolutely expect there to be some record of that activity, and we don't have any here.
So you can see how the Johnsons family is questioning, what's actually going on here. And you can see how they don't think that this is just an accident. And I want to mention 2 boys that the Johnson family suspected that had to do with their son's death. The Johnsons believed that their son was killed by fellow students Brian and Brandon Bell. Brian and Kendrick had been friends for many years. They did have a very public falling out on the school bus about a year before Kendrick's death. They were telling yo mama jokes, and it got out of hand and they began fist fighting. But according to friends and classmates, they had since made up and were acquaintances again, I guess you can say. And they had also drifted apart a little since Kendrick had quit the football team. Now, the boy's father is an FBI agent, and so the Johnsons believe that their father helped them cover it up. But at the time of Kendrick's death, Brandon was on a school bus to a wrestling tournament, along with dozens of other witnesses who were able to verify his whereabouts. And I mean, he would have had to have over 200 people lying for his alibi. And there was a incident with the timeline of the bus leaving. There was a log that explained that the bus was supposed to leave at 1, but it actually didn't leave until 4, but that was actually debunked, and all of the cell phone records show that all the boys and the teachers were actually at the wrestling match, wherever it was. And Brian, on the other hand, was captured on the school's footage in class at the time of Kendrick's death. Now, as I mentioned earlier, some of the footage was altered. So, my little conspiracy theory brain is like, well, was he in class, or was the footage altered, and where was he actually at the time of Kendrick's death? But now there is new footage of, I believe, Brian Bell going back and forth from the hallway to the gym several times. And also in the clip, I'll post it, you can see that one of the guys in red, he wasn't wearing any shoes, which is very, very strange. And also at one point, Brian even changes his clothes. I mean, something's fishy, guys. I don't know. So after all of these sketchy pieces of evidence come into light, the Johnsons family decide to dig up Kendrick's body in May 2013 to do a second autopsy by a private pathologist named Dr. William Anderson in Florida. And this time, the autopsy revealed that Kendrick had suffered hemorrhaging on the right side of his neck, which meant that he likely died from blunt force trauma. And the pathologist concluded his death was not an accident and should be investigated as a homicide. On top of this, the second autopsy also revealed, are you guys ready? That Kendrick Johnson's organs were missing. Okay? His organs were gone. And in their place, his body had been stuffed with newspaper. I mean, what the actual? Only imagine how Kendrick's family is feeling. So the GBI claimed that when the body was sent to the funeral home after the first autopsy, Johnson's organs had been put back inside the body. However, the coroner says that these organs were not sent to the funeral home because they were too decomposed and were instead disposed of beforehand. So the GBI's coroner said that his organs were too decomposed to send back with his body. And in reality, his organs had only been sitting there for about 21 hours. Now, they weren't usable. He couldn't donate them or anything, but they wouldn't have been decomposed fully in 21 hours. The funeral home said that it received the body without the organs, which it replaced with paper or sawdust, as is a common practice while embalming. And this is really strange. I mean, this practice hasn't been practiced since like the 60s, so you can see why everybody was freaking out about it. And it's not really used in today's, practices. So it's still really, really weird. And so the organs were gone and could not be tested during the second autopsy, which further, caused suspicions. In 2016, the state agrees to reopen Kendrick's case and further look into all of these quote-unquote mishaps that happened. And in the end, no charges will be filed against anyone in relation to Kendrick Johnson's death. And basically they said there was insufficient evidence to support federal criminal charges against anyone. And as far as the feds were concerned, this case was officially and finally closed and ruled as a freak accident. And you can imagine, the heartache and the heartbreak from Kendrick's family. And I have to agree with them. I mean, there's a lot of sketchy things that just don't add up. And there's a lot of questions, where are his clothes? Why were his organs missing? I mean, there's just too big of pieces to the puzzle missing that, you can't turn a blind eye to. You can't just turn your head against this evidence. But that's exactly what the state did to this case. And in June 2018, the family decides to dig up Kendrick's body once again and do a third autopsy. And the findings of this third autopsy agree that his death was not an accident and it was caused by a blunt force trauma. And I read somewhere that the Johnsons got a full-blown confession from someone, they didn't release the name, that the blunt force trauma to Kendrick's neck was actually due to a 45-pound dumbbell. And I can't confirm that source. I can't confirm that this actually happened. I did, however, link the document that I found on my website so that you guys can go check it out for yourselves. And Kendrick's family would, hope that with the third result of the third autopsy, that, it would be enough to reopen their son's case, and unfortunately it was not. And so Kendrick's case still remains closed, and his official death report ruling is a positional asphyxiation and a freak accident. And I don't know, guys, I don't know about you, but this case just doesn't sit well with me. And I'll be linking a link in my bio, a petition to sign to reopen Kendrick's case if you guys feel that, that the sketchy pieces of evidence just don't add up and that this death was actually not a freak accident. I hope that you guys, do your own research. Like I said, go, dig into a little more, form your own opinions. But if you feel the need to sign that petition, it is linked in my bio. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll see you guys next time. As always, check out my Instagram or my YouTube page for more pictures and videos from this case.